Okay, quickly, what was Jim Brown's telephone number? Well, bunch of different ways you could get there, right? We're at the very end of the list. So we could go over to the arrows and we could start clicking on this arrow a bunch of times and eventually we might get to the B's. Or we could click on the start and then maybe use the front arrow to try to get there. We could maybe go into contact list view and try to find it, but there's an easier way even than that. All we want to do is look up Jim Brown's telephone number. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to click on Look Up in the menu bar, and we're going to look up either by first name or last name, because that's what I asked you, Jim Brown. So that's the question. Well, should we use the first name or should we use the last name? Well, it's totally up to you, because it totally depends on each situation. In other words, if it's a very unique last name and you know that that name is only represented once in your database, it might be faster to just use that. In this case, Brown isn't a real unique last name, so we're just going to use the first name. I'm going to click on first name and then type in Jim, J-I-M, press enter, and notice that it went to Jim Curtis first, and then it said, oh, but there's a Jim Brown as well, and then ACT automatically switched us to contact list view so that we can quickly choose. That's a new feature in ACT 2006 in version 8, which is a very nice feature. Now, what's the telephone number? There it is, 800-555-1212. Now, if that's all we wanted, then we already have the information that we want. If I wanted more information, if you wanted to get more information about Jim Brown, you simply double click on Jim Brown's record, which brings him up in contact detail. So now we've got all of that different information. Remember, we put some different things in on these different tabs as well, like secondary contacts. Oh, that's right. His assistant's name is Sally Sue. I need to touch base with her as well. But the main thing that I want you to see on this lookup is how fast it is and how easy it is. But the other thing I want you to realize about lookups is that they're temporary. They're very quick, but they're very temporary. For example, if what I want to do now is look up all of the last names that start with a B. I say look up, last name, type in a B, and press enter. And ACT then brings up all of the last names that started with a B. Now, if that's what I need for my information, then that's fine. Then I can use that information. But how would I get back to that lookup of Jim's? In other words, is there an undo button or something? No, there isn't. I could do the lookup again, but there isn't a way to save lookups. Now, there is a way to save queries, and we'll talk about queries later on. That's one of the advantages in using a query rather than using a lookup. But lookups are extremely fast. We don't have to go back. Notice I did not go back to the all contacts lookup before I went to the next lookup. Like, for example, let's say I wanted to look up all of the contacts that are in a certain zip code. So I say look up zip code, and then I put in whatever the zip code is. Let's say it's just I want zip codes that start with 8. So I click on OK. And it says, okay, well, there's all the contacts that have a zip code that start with 8. Now, how do I know that? I can't even see the zip codes right now, but if I move over, I can now see the zip codes, and I can see that all of these zip codes in this lookup start with an 8. Now, that was accomplished without having to go back to the all contacts view. A lot of people think that between lookups you'd have to click on lookup and then go back to all contacts so that you'd make sure you get all of the contacts. The main thing I want you to understand is you don't have to. ACT always knows about all of the records that are in its database. So we don't have to go back to all contacts view to execute another lookup. You can even change your mind during a lookup. Let's say I say lookup, and let's say I decided I wanted to go by city. And so now I'm looking up by city, but I say, no, you know what? I really didn't want city. I really wanted zip code. Well, I can click on the drop down and then just simply type a Z, which will take me into the Z's and in fact onto zip code, and there I've switched my lookup. By the way, notice that we can look up any of the records. Any field that's in my database can be used for a lookup. So there's a tremendous amount of flexibility, even more so than is just in the menu bar, in the initial menu bar in Lookup. And we can use Lookup to quickly find records. But really, this is just scratching the surface of lookups. In our next section, we'll take a look at some more lookup variations. That's next.